Good evening, dear friends. This is the 6th session of reading and commentary series of the Divine Order and the Universe.
Good evening. Let's start by thanking our friends for their efforts and patience. At the beginning of our videos, although the book looks like it rather talks about physics, well, indeed, it is about physics. Why? Because, as we previously said, the word universe means the matter universe, as it'll be mentioned in the pages we'll read this week, and we understand that better and better. Therefore, this is the manual of this physics universe, how it is related to the spirits, how there is a divine order in it, how it works. So, the book is a manual addressing this physical understanding of universe. Let's say, if we pray, how our pray works, if we have beliefs, how beliefs work, if we feel sad, how sadness works, or if we are engaged in something physical, what its place in the spiritual development is, the meaning of events, and even, the events we experience communally, for example the recent earthquake in Izmir. So as we read and study this manual, we'll have better understanding about the meanings of such events, how these work. That's why we see the book very important. Also, the book's being a compilation of spiritual communiqués, it's being kept hidden until its time arrives, and when its time has arrived, it's being shared with public, its publication, its translations to other languages, and through our and other friends' efforts, we try to do our best to make this book more understandable. We also try to understand and explain it better. Honestly, as I prepare for these video series, I understand it better because I feel responsible to make it more understandable, so as I read it once again, it gives me more meaning. Therefore, we like to study in this way.
It also nurtures us.
So, secretly, we study it for ourselves as well as for you.
Yes. As we think and discuss how we can explain it in a better way, we find more ways how we can understand it better. Let me say it again that our comments are not absolute and final. We rely on our current understanding and comprehension, and our efforts to understand it better. We can make mistakes, too. Later, we can revise them. In that sense, your feedback is invaluable for us. Your questions make us to think some concepts over. No question is meaningless.
One of friends asked, what are we? Are we the human body in this matter universe? Or the spirit that influencing a body? What or which are we? Also added, my brain is on fire, but it is not a problem, our brains should be firing, anyway that means that neuron connections increase. No problem, our brains are always in fire, after all. Now, if we can be patient, this will be clearer as we read, especially after the pages we'll read today. We are the bodies of the being which is an intermediary between the spirit and matter, an intermediary for our own spirit. The being is under the governance of the spirit, which we can't understand how, and that spirit does applications in the matter universe for its evolutionary needs. This matter universe's primary substance is the amorphous matter. Yet due to the difference of substance, the spirit can't directly incarnate in this body, there is an intermediary structure between spirit and matter, that we call as being. We will be discussing this in detail as we read the book. This is also of matter, but a part of it is open to the spirit, that part of it is in contact with the spirit. And the other part of it is a focal point which governs the body, and this body can be in any cosmos, realm or milieu yet still in this matter universe, in accordance with the needs of the spirit. So the purpose of this being is to convey the information or impression it receives from the body to the spirit by converting these in a way the spirit can use in its evolution, of course, under the light of the original principle. Also, it receives influences from the spirit related to its needs and learns how to rule over the body. Therefore, each of us is a body, our brain is inside this body. Our brain works as the antenna and also the supervisor for this exchange between the body and the being. And our body transmits and collects all that information. We can think the body like this. The rest is up to the being. Later, we'll be elaborating on how this transmission happens, as we'll see, during sleep, and also during a stage after death. And later, gradually, we begin to complete this matter universe. However, humankind is only a minuscule, brief, even a fleeting stage of the whole progress of this spiritual evolution in the matter universe. So, we must understand it well. We must get out of our human-centered perspective. So, the world and realms, space and universe are not for human, they are for the spirit. Human is for spirit. So, nothing revolves around us. With this book, we'll gradually feel it more and more.
We used to say I have a spirit, now it turned to I have a spiritual being. And this spiritual being of ours is in connection to a spirit that is supra-universe, outside of this universe, and is having material experiences, and then synthesis these as essence knowledge. It receives and makes influence, like a processor. Our brains receive the influences, as if a modem. Therefore, keeping our brains healthy is very important, from our essence being. We will read in the divine order, and the universe how this being comes about. It'll be defined as an influences and energies ensemble, a perceptual point of gathering. So, the knowledge we gleaned through lifetimes in body are gathered in a perceptual point, and then conveyed to the spirit. For this interaction to occur, the brain is a very important organ. So, really, we have to take care of our brain. In this universe, we'll always belong to a material system and unable to go beyond matter. And we must remember that what we study today is all about our material universe.
Yes. We have another question. If the universes are infinite, does it mean that possibilities are infinite? No. This is not about the parallel universe theory, we had mentioned it last week. Please don't mix them up. Parallel universe is another perspective, and the divine order and the universe doesn't mention this. Yet we need to explain the infiniteness of the universes. Ours is the matter universe. Its substance is matter, the universe which its primary substance is amorphous matter. There are other universes like this one, but of their substances or primary matter, we don't know. Each has different properties, and this is beyond our imagination. That is, the adjectives we can use are the adjectives of our matter universe, after all. And because matter doesn't exist there or there is another kind of substance, no adjective we can use can tell anything about such universes. Therefore, we simply say that the primary matter of such universes are not the same of ours. That is, we don't know it. And there is no need to know, anyway. We haven't even understood the primary matter or constitution of our matter universe yet. Yes, we can wonder and think about this, but right now, we can't comprehend it. So, we'll focus on matter. Prophets had talked about defeating matter. Jesus said, "I have overcome the world." Muhammad prayed, "Show me the truth of the things." Even though they were prophets, incarnated with a duty, they were still working to understand matter. Of course, it doesn't mean, I don't let money control me or I can control my emotions. No, these are the lowest level of examples of overcoming matter. There are many much higher levels of it.
Another question was, if the spirit is perfect and knows everything, why the need for evolution? This is what we need to unlearn after the publication of the divine order and the universe. Our previous spiritual thinking was spirit is perfect, yet now, with this book, the spirit is repositioned completely. As you read at some part of the book, there are novice spirits, and as they evolve, their governance over matter's development increases. So we find here that those spirits are novice about the matter of our universe, but we don't know about their levels of experience in other universes. Therefore, spirits engage with matter of our universe. As we saw in our previous videos, they gather and disperse, form and deform matter. Until spirits are engaged in atom, they continue with automatic and passive impressions, and as matter gather as ensembles, through the incoming influences, matter also develops. So spirit and matter, in tandem, Exchange influences. We already had mentioned how matter attains properties. Yes, there is something spirits glean from the matter universe for their evolution, but the book says you can't know the evolutionary needs of the spirits. Even the plan says that we can't know it. So, if the gathering point of all comprehensions in the universe is the unitary, as it is said in the book that the unitary is the utmost point of the universe, even the knowledge given from that level, in this book, even they say we can't know too. As you frequently mentioned, some topics or subjects should be taken in by intuition, because our intelligence is not always sufficient.
There is one more question we need to reply. If we eventually become amorphous matter, what will happen to the experiences we lived through? This is a better question. As you remember, we had said that the book talks about a cycle, starting from the amorphous matter, again, not the Big Bang, as the minimum level, then talks about how matter develops and then the spiritual evolution, and the emerging of the being. Yes, the being is made up of matter, but this is a highly developed matter, a matter which can only govern by an evolved spirit. And then, this being becomes active without needing a body. And following the stages after the human stage, this being becomes able to assume duties in the further plans, such as the Plan of Duty. As the beings involve in duty groups, those groups develop and widen, and this leads to an ever-widening compression. And due to this, a comprehension that encompasses the whole universe emerges, the unitary, a system that comprehends the universe as one and is able to meet the needs of the spirits. And only after that point, our spiritual side that had understood even the most minuscule part of the whole universe doesn't need the being anymore because it finishes the matter universe. It graduates from the matter universe. Then it severs its connection to the being. And when this contact is no more, due to the absence of any coming influence, matter is without motion and it reverts back to its original state, that is, the amorphous state. However, all of our impressions and all the facts that are needed to be kept and restored related to the spiritual evolution are gathered and collected in our spiritual side. So, we carry out what is needed. Because we feel and think human-centered, we ask, what will happen after this? Will it be nothingness? No, on the contrary, we will attain a state that even a highly developed being becomes insufficient, we will almost be one with our spiritual side. Yet, not with our current emotions, current understanding, current fears, with none of what we have now. This will be such a state of oneness. So, we rather imagine this.
I agree with what you said about our human-centered thinking. Again, one of questions was, is the spirits are immortal, why they need evolution? Here, again, immortality, we consider spirits, which are super-universe truths, in terms of our human understanding. The divine order and the universe position the spirit in an entirely different place. Because of this, maybe we need to change our terms and concepts as well. Because immortality of spirits is again a concept from our old way of spiritual thinking. I think, when you start watching our video series from the beginning, things will be more understandable. Okay, there is one more question, and after replying this, we can continue reading the book. Can you briefly explain the difference between the realm and the universe?
Briefly, we can. The universe includes realms, cosmoses, and worlds. As a formula, visualize this. The universe includes realms. Period.
For example, we are inside the hydrogen cosmos or realm. It is made up of hydrogen atom. The system we physically exist in is the hydrogen cosmos, and it has levels, lower or cruder, higher or finer, subtler. And as you just mentioned, the cosmos we try to complete is this hydrogen cosmos, so we can move to the plan of love, a much subtler realm. So, as you said, there are many realms or cosmoses in the universe. The hydrogen realm is where our world exists in. We can't know about other realms. We barely began to understand our own. As it is stated in the book, our perceptions and scope of our discovering is limited. That we didn't discover them does not mean that they don't exist. The book kindly emphasizes our inability. All right, let's continue reading the book. The universe is not the only one. Universes are infinite. And the infiniteness of the universes is an imperative of absolute inaccessibility and unattainability. None of these infinite universes carries the quality of any other, and every universe's character emerges with its fundamental substance, which is its principle. Our universe's fundamental or original substance is the matter state that is absolute, motionless, and amorphous. Spirit, which is active and in need of evolution, is a purpose for passive universes. That is, spirits meet their needs as they see the reflections of their behaviors over and over upon universe substances. Therefore, universes are the field that respond to the needs of spirits, which we call evolution. We express this symbolically as universes are milieux, each one particular to their substances, that are useful for the applications of spirits, and that reflect the consequences of these applications back to spirits. Spirits which are active evolve by indirectly using, according to their needs, the infinite possibilities of myriad universe substances which are passive. If the universes did not exist, neither would the sublime needs of spirits that we do not know about be met, nor would the reason for the existence of universes remain if the spirits did not exist. These go together and are always in tandem with each other, to such a degree that, although an absolute and infinite inaccessibility and unattainability exists between these two, they are nevertheless, as it were, closely intertwined with each other.
Yes. As we mentioned at the end of our video last week, the concept of yin-yang, albeit symbolically, is explicit here. The passive matter universe and the active spirit that in need of evolution. Even though they don't and can't mix, as in yin-yang symbol, they do not mix but complete each other. There is no contact. So they go together and advance each other in tandem. Here we need to grasp the understanding or image, how advanced and active the spirit is in regard its evolutionary need. The matter responds to this activity through the influences coming from the original principle. It is not that spirit evolves because matter gets developed. Matter gets developed in accordance with the needs of the spirit. The whole range of matter's development, starting from zero to the utmost point, is the result of the active spirit's needs. Consequently, development of matter occurs, formations, transformations, deformations. All of these occur as the needs of the spirit arise. And the need of the spirit manipulates matter accordingly and allows it to develop in that direction. Sometimes this can be development from one element to another, sometimes as gathering of elements to make up formations, or as the emergence of the being. Again, these are all matter formations or deformations that point to the extent of the spiritual evolution. The being is a similar gathering of matter but only is possible by a spirit that attained a certain level. So, the spirit doesn't start at the matter universe by knowing how to do it. On the contrary, it starts as a novice. Moreover, even if it builds up its being that has some comprehension, still this formation depends on its level of development. That is, between the constitutional level of a plant's being and of a human's being there is a developmental distance which can be deemed as infinite, as well as, between the needs of their respective spirits. So, the most important point in this passage is that matter responds to the spirit's needs. So, when we say, we only live the events we need, we mean this. So we have a need, our being needs something and that event happens. That's all. So, if something bad happens to us, we shouldn't say, why this happened to me. It's not fair. Instead, we should try to understand the reasons of the active hunger or yearning of our spiritual being related to its development in the face of that event, how this event is useful for its advancement. As we get better doing this, it is like playing with a yo-yo, remember that toy? At first it is very hard, but later you get used to it. Likewise, we can play with events as if they are yo-yos. Yet if we can't grasp such a perspective, then the events will be like an unbalanced yo-yo, that will never moves up properly, along the thread, and we say, nonsense. How can this will go up and down on a thread? Yet, as this toy has a logic, events we live have a logic too, but we won't only say, okay, this was what I needed, and go on with our lives. It must be understood. If we only say, okay, and go on, the same event keeps on happening to us. We need to understand that need for it. We mustn't justify it. Please try to understand the event. This is very important.
This is what brings awareness to us.
Of course.
Also, this passage says again, matter is passive and spirit is active. They are exact opposites. And for matter to gain motion, active spirit acts with its influence. Here, it summarizes it nicely. We already talked about these. This phrase, these go together and are always in tandem with each other, is so nice. Yes, the universe exists for the spirits, due to their needs but following the development of matter, widening its scope, of its capability to respond the needs of the spirit. All those formations and deformations, like a ever-encompassing dance they do side by side. Another important point here is, because the spirits are outside of matter universe, they are indirectly in contact with matter. So there is no direct contact between them. Just like a reflection in a mirror. That reflected image is not the thing itself. Mirror only reflects back what is reflected on it. So, in a way, here we can think spirit is not inside but reflected in the mirror of matter. They just look as if they are closely intertwined. They say, embrace each other. These are such warm words, aren't they?
When I read, as if they were intertwined, what appears in my mind is yin-yang. This passage reminds me most about it.
Let's continue reading. Here, this question comes to mind, seeing that there is such absolute inaccessibility and unattainability between spirits and universes. Then how can spirits use all the possibilities of universes, even down to the tiniest particle? And how can spirits and universes embrace each other as if they were intertwined? First of all, let us say that relations between spirits and universes that are separated from each other with an absolute inaccessibility and unattainability never ever occur directly, but instead occur in indirect ways. Here, it is necessary and imperative to state a great truth, which is as follows. There are high principles governing both, above the myriad universes, which are organized following each other in an infinite sequence, with each one's quality composed of different substances and each more encompassing than the other and containing infinite variations, as well as above the spirits, which have infinite expansion and profundity and which will continue their endless evolution in these universes. And they determine, evaluate and affirm all states and destinies of spirits and universes in both a forward and backward direction. Of their qualities, we can neither know nor have the slightest insight. For this great truth is above the infinite spirit realm and the infinite chain of universe substances, and separated from them by an absolute inaccessibility and unattainability. We cannot afford to say a word or to put forward an idea about the explanation of this truth we call the original principle. For no power, capability, comprehension, or intuition that may allow it exists in our matter universe and cannot exist. However, we will mention this great truth, which is the unattainability of unattainability, with a symbolic name as the original principle. Every truth, within the universes, above the universes and among the spirits, are under the governance and order of the original principle. All those occurrences, fluxes, and everything can only be realized by its necessities. We leave all divine concepts about this to mankind's degrees of comprehension, and especially their ability to intuit. So, this apparent state of embracing each other, despite the inaccessibility and unattainability between spirits and universes, is realized by the necessities of this sublime principle we call the original principle. The force of the original principle, which on the one hand takes in spirits, these are symbolic expressions, also on the other hand takes in universes, and spirits and universes, in the presence of this sublime principle, are reflected in each other as if being reflected by a mirror. Naturally, this concept of a mirror is again symbolic, and this symbol should not be placed with the original principle. Here, the point is to express the smallest aspect of the force of the original principle belonging to the relation of universes and spirits, by referring to the mirror symbol, and we can only express it in such a way. Now, let us expand this knowledge with worldly language. Influences coming from the original principle set the amorphous universe substances in motion according to the needs of spirits, and there they form infinite variations of matter-substance. Therefore, in regard to substance comparison, spirit is not within the universe, but in regard to its representation and expression within the universe substance through a subtle matter being, it is within the universe. So, as they will be revisited in the following topics, we have provided here the first knowledge about the aim towards which the forming and transitions of matter are directed. It is intense, isn't it?
Yes. Again, another characteristic of spiritual communiqués, it touches upon various topics and also refers to the further topics, and at the end, refers back to and makes clear the topic of the original principle in these 4 or 5 paragraphs. Now, page 19 and 20 are one of the most valuable parts of the book in regard to some issues. These pages are preparation, with many words, for the page 31 that has the clear explanation. Now, here, first we need to understand this state of inaccessibility and unattainability. Without giving it a shape in our minds, we must think about the fact of universe, the fact of spirit, that are not merged or mixed, but in an indirect exchange, and this is done through the knowledge and the influences of the original principle. So we must establish these 3 facts properly. These 3 facts explains our spiritual evolution and material development. Because it is a useful symbol, take yin-yang, the system that is partly within each other. Consider it the universe of spirit and matter. Yet there is also the circle encompassing it, system is in it. What the book defines as if they are in a deep embrace, is like this circle, it represents the original principle. So, the system is just this. However, if we take things by saying, here is matter, there is spirit and it sends influence etc., then we make things too materialistic. It is better to have an abstract notion. That's why yin-yang image is significant. Everything is within each other, is a good perspective. Here, it is said, the unattainability of unattainability, please notice that, it isn't said, the unattainability of the unattainable, it is only said, the unattainability of unattainability. Although it looks like a simple sentence, indeed it isn't. Here, it only refers to our system, the matter universe and spirits, and the contact of the original principle with this system. Yet on page 31, the same term refers to an all-encompassing state. So, let's try to discern this definition like this. Then, things will be established better.
Even the plan, although they are in such a high level of development, although they are a cadre of duty, a system that overcame the hydrogen cosmos, even they are in the great unity of activities and operations. They still express the unattainability of unattainability, by saying this great truth is above the infinite spirit realm, and the infinite chain of universe substances. Infinite chain of universe substances. And also, over these, there are higher principles that determine, evaluate and affirm all states and destinies of spirits and universes. So the plan expresses truths beyond them and governing them as well. As you said, a system even encompassing them and the rest. You mentioned yin-yang and the circle around it. Indeed, even that circle is very limited to point this concept. So, in that sense, this has even no limits.
Yes. Even though we expressed so many words, when we go back to previous pages, a few words are enough to make us upside down. Which words? Universes are not ever-widening spheres within each other. So the book says that you must even leave such understanding, that the universes have borders or limits, etc. So, we must go beyond our understanding of geometrical dimensions by imagination. We need to go beyond it in our imagination. I mean, to understand those passages about the structure of the universe, don't expect something that can be drawn or shown in a YouTube video. Let's try to understand a universe without geometry. Don't think that we know it but can't find the words to express these. We are not arrogant. We, too, try hard to understand matter beyond matter we now live in.
I'd like to hear your thoughts about this phrase. All states and destinies of spirits and universes in both a forward and backward direction. We can understand the forward part, forward in evolution. But I wonder why backward direction was used here as well. What does the book mean by backward direction?
First, I must admit that I don't understand what is meant by this. However, there is a theory in physics saying that the universe is expanding, and due to the law of entropy, it will eventually contract, and later, it will expand again. Indeed, the book will say in another page, in the form of a spirals extending and contracting in one direction, but it is about the topic of time, but here, it doesn't mean this. Here, it is said, forward and backward. Well, two things come to my mind. And they are related to our matter universe only. First one, we used to say, there is no going back in spiritual evolution. Maybe this, backward, is about the waste of time, which is the real hell. Second one, it may mean the process when spirit doesn't need the matter anymore, and consequently, matter's reverting back to its amorphous state. But I can't tell anything about this in relation with other universes. There is no data in our hands to talk or theorize or make any assumptions about this. I can only say these two things about our universe, but about others. I can't even say one universe is better than another. For example, saying that we complete one universe and then move on to another is also wrong. Because the book says that, spirit is doing applications in many universes simultaneously. So, we don't know if one universe is backward and another universe is forward. Yes, a vague phrase. I can only think these two things, expanding and contracting of the universe.
Actually, it doesn't express a state of backwardness or forwardness, but the direction of motion. This is how I understand this. Spirit and matter. There is a flow from the active one to the passive one. You know, astrologers says Mercury is in retrograde. Actually, planets do not go back, but due to their given locations and varying speeds, one of them may seem to go slower than another, relatively. Similarly, the motion within the matter universe may be perceived like this. This is how I understand it. Not as backward or forward states or developed or underdeveloped states, but the direction of motion. I am checking if there is anything we need to emphasize or comment. The book will elaborate on the original principle in the following pages. Here, the mirror symbol and the reflections on it is given as an example. We already mentioned it.
I'd like to give another clue. To explain this process of development, the book gives the example of a school in the following pages. About students completing the grades and their graduation. This example talks about the governing organ of the school. A director of the school. What's it called in English? Principal. Let's just keep it in our minds. Yet it is still about the school. Let's say our school is our matter universe. And the original principle is a principle that has a technique that encompasses all universes. Not a principle encompasses the matter universe but all universes.
Which created and is the single source of all higher principles. The unattainability of unattainability. Now, there is a question. Does the word backward mean incarnating as animals? It doesn't mean this. Later, in the pages about the stages of being, we will see that a being that has passed the animal stage and incarnated as a human being can't revert back to animal stage. It is out of question. Later, we will discuss and elaborate on such issues. Please do not think the term backward in this way.
Then it means transmigration, which is an Indian concept of reincarnation that is entirely degenerated in time. It is not included in any topics we study and discuss. It is a degenerated belief.
All right, then, let's continue from the next page. Manifestation of a matter, that is, its emergence with its own particular properties amidst other matter in its milieu, means first of all its involvement in relation to other matter states and forms in certain proportions and degrees. More correctly, the fact that it is within means of interaction with them. So it means that the more the multitude and scope of influences a matter receives and gives, the more that matter manifests and the higher the stages of development it is in. Of course, there is the order, sequence, and ways of a matter's relations with its milieu. The order and sequence are executed by myriad influences coming from above, below, left and right to the matter combinations in accordance with the harmony of sublime principles. And the purpose of this execution is to allow spirits to evolve by utilizing matter. Thus, if a spirit no longer needs a matter combination and does not act towards it, all motions of that matter combination, which are seen in the milieu it is in, vanish, and all of its values, which are particular to that moment, cease to be. And we describe this, in mankind's language, as a kind of death or disintegration of that matter combination. Here the important thing is, as you had mentioned before, they talk about entropy. In this system, when the need of the spirit ceases, this influence stops, like it is unplugged. They say in mankind's language, as a kind of death. The system reverts to its initial form, its primary matter.
Yes, it reverts. It may be about forward and backward as well. Here, also, to understand the human condition better, we can give such an example for this passage. The more the multitude and scope of influences a matter receives and gives, the more that matter manifests and the higher the stages of development it is in. The best example for it is our bodies. Let's think about our bodies and also a cell that only reacts to the light. And whenever light is on this cell makes only one motion. It has an extension like a tail and it moves this. Light comes, it moves. The whole life of it goes on like this. And that cell gets developed and becomes one of our optic cells. I try to point to how the development progresses. Let's try to understand the influence that cell receives and transmits, and its capacity. It is engaged in a narrow field of influence and it reacts in this narrow scope of influence. Incoming light and moving tail. Yet, when we see it's going up in development and think about our body, wow! From the moisture and heat in a room to the amount of light, from the emotional influences and their effects on our intestines to the effect of our intestines upon the whole nerve system in our bodies, to the influences our hearts over all of our bodies through blood pressure and changing hormone levels, and in the meantime our reactions and actions toward our surrounding, and simultaneously receiving the torrents of ever-coming influences from the outside, and the brain's organizing all of these and at the same time, aligning and harmonizing these with our being. This is the developed matter in higher states of development. Our bodies are much more developed than that single cell with tail. The more influences you are engaged with, the more developed you are. So, the development you get at the top of the mountain is not same with the development you get in a city, among people. The body you use, as a being, becomes more capable with more exchange of influences. I think, this can be an example.
And even biology teaches us that even a flagellum, a single cell with tail, has an enormously developed structure. We used to look at them with microscopes and underestimate them, yet even behind them, there is an immensely complex experience, system and organization. And recently it is even discovered that these single cells have a communication network. They send signals back and forth. Yes, this is an infinite scale, an infinite journey.
We collected many questions coming from you. We will talk about many issues, again and again, while replying these. We like doing these videos. No problem. Together, we talk and think and discuss.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.